Hey everybody, how's it going? My name is Lane and welcome back to Redstone 101. In today's class, we will be discussing all things about the comparator. So as you may know, if you watched the very first episode of the Redstone 101 series, the comparator is the absolute bane of my existence. They are so complicated, but today's video is, well, to kind of help you understand just how they work, and it's partly to help me understand how they work, so we're going to go through it together. So the first thing here is this is what the comparator looks like. This thing has two prongs in the back, and it has this toggleable switch right here in the front, which we'll discuss later. And the comparator, it basically has, the sole job of, well, comparing inputs and stuff like that. So this side here is the output, and then this side back here with the prongs is the input. And then these sides here are for, well, comparing, and we'll discuss that, later on. But basically, the job is for it to compare these outputs or inputs to this one, and it basically works off of that, but we'll discuss that later on. One other cool feature of the comparator is that it reads the input based off of a container right in front of it, so you can use a chest or a barrel or something like that. And basically, the signal that gets output comes from how much is inside of the container. So you can see that if I don't break the chest, if I put in one stack, you'll get just one signal strength here. And essentially, the more you put in, the more you'll get out of it. So if I just do this here and fill this up, and you take a look, the signal strength is maximum all the way over here to the end. And if I take some of it out, then it will also drop that output as well. So let's talk about the different modes of the comparator. If you turn on this little thing up here, this turns on subtraction mode, and when it is off, it is in normal mode. So you can see it is in normal mode right now, and I've got this basically set up here, and you flick this on, and it'll send out a normal redstone signal. But if I decide to put in another one over here to the side, and then I add in a lever and power it on, it cuts that signal off. What happens is, this is reading the signal coming from the nearest device, I guess, is the easiest way to put it. So essentially, the signal strength, the further away from it is, the weaker the signal is, and the closer to it, the stronger it is. Because this signal is only one block, this is the strongest it can be. It cuts off the signal coming from this direction. Though if I decide to take this lever away and I extend this out and make this even with that one and turn it on, there is still an output. Or if I decide to make this signal strength weaker and I turn it on, there is still an output. So I realize how confusing that actually sounds, and I'm just gonna briefly explain real quick. So this is the comparator, and it compares it compares the signal strength coming to it. So essentially, the one coming off the side here, if this signal strength is weaker than this one, then the output will continue. If this signal strength is stronger than this one, then it will cut that signal strength off. I do highly recommend messing around with the comparator yourself to try to figure it out a little bit and see what you can come up with. But yeah, that is basically the best way that I can sum it up for now. So one other thing to keep in mind about these comparators is that they output a signal that is equal to the input signal. Now, if you remember back from the first episode of Redstone 101, I mentioned how the repeater continues a signal, how it basically restarts it. Well, this doesn't restart it, this just continues it from where it was. So I've got this set up to be a 9-block line of the redstone dust, and then when you turn it on, you can see that it only outputs so much more of the actual signal itself. Now using that, we can go over here and take a look at this, which is the subtraction mode. So if we take a look at the actual things here, I've got signs over here by these levers corresponding with their signal strength. So the one up close to the actual comparator is going to be 15, and all the way back away from it is going to be 1, which is going to be the weakest signal. You can see here, if I turn on this, you will only get a signal strength of 1 putting out back there. But if I get closer to it and say right here at 11, turn it on, we get a much bigger signal going out like this. The same also works for the other side of it, going in through the actual side of the comparator. The weakest signal strength will be all the way at the back, and the strongest will be at the front, and that will also make a difference as well. Now that we have that understanding, we can go ahead and take an actual look at the subtraction mode itself. Alright, so subtraction mode. Well, let's just talk about that real quick. So let's say that I have a signal strength of 15. So you can see down there that the redstone is lit up all the way down across there. But if I come over here to this side and say I put in an input of 8, you'll see that it cuts the signal off and it stops at 7 because 15 minus 8 equals 7. Let's say I turn off the 8 and I make it a little bit weaker, say 4. It will turn it off at 11 instead. And basically you can just do the math on that. The actual input signal strength subtracted by the side input signal strength like this. So if this side is 15 and this side is 5, then you'll get a signal strength of 10 and so on. So as I mentioned earlier, the comparator can be used up against like a chest or a container or some sort, but there's also a few other stranger blocks as well. So let's just go through all of the blocks here. We've got the chest, the trap chest, the barrel, the hopper minecart on top of a detector rail, a shulker box, a cake, which you can see is already reading that, a furnace, a brewing stand, a cauldron, which is probably one of the more useful ones because cauldrons can be moved around, and then there's the ender portal frame, then there's the dropper and dispenser, and then there is this is supposed to be a chest minecart right here on top of a detector rail, and then an item frame and a jukebox. Alright, and just a couple more facts about the comparator. It actually has the same tick speed as the repeater, so you can see if I flick this lever on, they turn on and off at about the same time. And these comparators can read the input through another block. So you can see here I've got this up against a spruce log, and inside this chest here, I've got another spruce log, and it's putting out a signal strength of 1 because it is reading it through there. Now how it determines this is a mathematical equation that I absolutely don't understand, and I'm not even going to try to understand it. I'm not going to try to explain it, but it'll be in the description for you if you guys want to take a look at it anyway. So now we're going to take a look at some redstone circuits that can be used with this thing. So you can see here that I have got subtraction mode turned on, and this is basically just rewired back into it. So if I turn this on, this will just completely keep turning on and off. And what's happening here is because there is a 1 block output right here, this means there is a signal strength of 15, which is then going around to 14, 13. So 15 minus 13 equals 2, which then means it's putting out a signal strength of 2 here, which turns this off. So it, turns this back on, which turns on another signal strength of 15. And it basically just keeps doing that and turning it on and off. Now, I realize how confusing that is. I don't know that I explained it correctly, but that's about as good of an explanation as I'm going to get it. Essentially, it is subtracting until, well, it can't subtract anymore, and this signal strength out here is still on because of this lever, so it just keeps rotating around. That's essentially how that is working. So the next one we're going to look at is a bit of a pulse extender, and I've not really talked about those on this channel yet, and it might be something that I delve into later on. But essentially what a pulse extender does is it basically takes the pulse that's going from a redstone circuit and it extends it. So you can see if I turn this button on, and you can see it comes back up, and this slowly fades away because it's lasting a little bit longer. And that's essentially all that it does. So you can see here that I've got a redstone signal of 15 going into the comparator. So this goes 15, and then it puts out a signal over here to 15, 15, 14, 14, 14, and then it just keeps going back down until it's, turned all the way off. And that's basically all there is to that. It does sound complicated, but just think about it this way. This is your input. There's a signal strength of 15 going right here. The comparator is then putting out a signal over to this block, which is then turning on this redstone, which means this redstone is also having an output of 15 because of this one. This one is having an output of 15 because of this comparator being, comparing the output of 15 from this side, and it just keeps rotating around. So 15, 15, 15, and then it just keeps going down like that all the way until it reaches 0 and turns completely off. Alright, the next one is a very common use for the comparator, which I've used quite a bit, and I kind of showcased in the auto sorter tutorial and in the last video over there, where I showed the auto dropper. And basically all this is doing is the comparator is reading the input of the dropper itself, and it then is putting out an output signal based off of that into the repeater, and then that feeds all the way around to this other repeater, and this other repeater is then feeding into there, which is powering it. And basically this redstone dust here is feeding back into there. And because this is coming from the repeater, the signal strength is stronger than the one coming from the comparator. So this constantly shuts this off after each click, and it just keeps refreshing like that. So if I put those in there, you'll see it keeps spitting out because it's turning on and off, because it just keeps refreshing like so. And basically this other one over here is basically working in the same way. This comparator is reading the input from here, as you can see, and it then sends a signal over here to this dust, which sends a signal over to this repeater, which then sends a stronger signal strength to that comparator, shutting it off. And then because there are still items in here, this is still powered, which keeps it circling around. They both work the exact same, they're just in a slightly different layout. This is the layout that I've typically use, but this one might also be one that, you know, you also use yourself. So it's just something else to kind of consider whenever you're setting these things up. All right, and that just about wraps it up for today's video. The comparator, as you can see, is a very complicated thing. I highly recommend that you just play with the comparator and figure it out yourself. I mean, obviously, you know, take a look at these reference videos. Mine is very highly inspired by Mumbo's, but a lot of this is also stuff that I have learned from just messing around with it as well. So it's just something to definitely consider. But like I said, I think that just about wraps up today's video. If you enjoyed today's video, please be sure to give me a like, comment down below letting me know what you guys want to see more of, or if you have any other farms or any other redstone contraptions you want to see me make, please let me know, because I'm very interested in making some, you know, different stuff, even some stuff that I've never made before. I think that'd be pretty cool. And subscribe to the channel if you are new, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss out on any future content. My name is Lane, and I will see you guys next time. Goodbye, everybody.